What's up guys, this is me Zero Mekitsune, and today I want to talk to you about the Arcana Heart 4 creator talking about potential design changes on Twitter. Now first off, shoutouts to Censored Gaming. That's the only reason why I know about this. They're pretty cool when it comes to talking about censorship in the gaming industry, hence the name, so maybe go check them out. But I'm only going to be brief, or at least try to be brief in this take, on my own thoughts, because the main reason why I'm doing this video is just to highlight a particular set of replies to the tweet that are a little bit further down, so people might not have seen them and it lacked any sort of retweets or likes, so I'm pretty sure no one saw it, but I think it is the best example of why games like Arcana Heart just don't do as well in the West. Now first of all, let's talk about the first tweet about potentially changing the homing system. Should he change it? I don't think so, and thankfully 65% of the people on the poll which he set up said no as well. To me it's part of Arcana Heart, it's kind of ingrained in it and it gives the game its own unique experience. I don't think you should take that away because otherwise you just become another fighting game. I guess they could potentially add something in to replace it, and I think they would have to. I feel like just vaguely saying should we get rid of the homing system's a little bit harsh. Maybe have a little bit more dialogue on that, because changes could be made to make it easier to newer players while keeping veterans happy. So, you know, change is always good, but essentially if it's either all or none, keep the homing system. Next up, Kira and Konoha's visual changes. Oh man, I went on for like 10 minutes straight in my first recording over this. But first of all, censorship. If you're censoring yourself for the Western market, don't do it. Second of all, if this is the type of game you want, and it feels like that's how Arcana Heart was built up. It's a bunch of young female characters fighting each other in a battle with a character named Heart who fights people with love. You're a niche game. You're just gonna have to live with that if that's the type of designs you want. Don't bend for the Western market just because you're probably gonna get more money. And you know, corporate investors like, yes, bend, but these are the things that, like I said, these type of games have to deal with. Players who play them might end up embarrassed that they play them, and that's the sadness of society. There are plenty of people who don't want to admit that they play Dead or Alive hardcore because, you know, the bias of jubbly booblies all up on the screen. And I don't know what else to say about that. I don't think you should censor it, but I guess I could kinda understand from a corporate perspective. Yeah, maybe you gotta change something, because that's what happened with Street Fighter V and Armika. People were up in arms about why you censoring her butt slap, and lo and behold, when they finally got on television, the damn television channel that they were running for, ESPN2 I think, flat out told them, yeah, that player in the grand finals, he needs to change Armika's costume because I know you censored the butt slap, but nah, the butt's there, we just can't have that on national television. So that's where the corporate thoughts when it comes to that comes from. But onward, I guess one final point would be simply, do you want to appeal to a wider audience, or do you want to create what made this game this game? I guess that's the simplest way I can say about it. Ooh, one little thing to add on though, if you are going to change Kira and Konoha's visual design, do it well. Don't make people think about it and be like, man, the old design was better, but make people be like, you know what, this is pretty good, because that's what happened with Jury, another Street Fighter V example. Some people were up in arms about the fact that they had to cover her up because I guess the costume they initially designed was too revealing. But in the end, that black skin tight latex, which is basically retexturing her skin a different color, it looks better, it brings the outfit together. If you can get that effect by changing either Kira or Konoha to make people think, yeah, this is better, go ahead and do it. It's annoying because the reason you did it was stemmed from censorship, or, you know, a variation of censorship, but more power to you if it's a better design in the end. Moving on to the Twitter points. First tweet. Anime girl fighters get a bad rep in the West because a lot of people are embarrassed to be seen playing them. I briefly talked about that, but yeah, it's the Dead or Alive effect. No one wants to admit that they play them because, you know, social stigma and all that such. It's not just fighting games, it's anything that's not traditionally seen as okay. Next tweet. People who complain about Kira and Konoha already don't like Arcana Heart. Changing them will not help anyway. Yeah, because that's what I was talking about earlier. Kira and Konoha are just part of Arcana Heart. They blend well with the rest of the roster, and that's because that's the design you made. If they have a problem with Kira and Konoha, they probably have a problem with 3 or 4 other characters in the cast. They're just extremes. And a lot of people who talk about these sort of things are the ones talking from really far away. They're the ones who just saw a picture of Konoha and like, we need to erase that from the internet altogether. Or more likely Kira. But yeah, so take it with a grain of salt. Vocal minorities and all that such. Next tweet. Please understand Arcana Heart does have fans in the US and Europe, but Arcana Heart is a niche game in a niche genre. Yeah, again, brought it up. Most of these tweets I kinda said in my little opinion statement, but these types of fighting games, more or less the ones that try to push the, not necessarily push the envelope, but wearing your sleeves. I can't say wearing your sleeves either, because Arcana Heart is pretty tame compared to other fan servicey fighting games, but you get what I'm saying. Kinda ishy fan servicey fighting games like Arcana Heart, they're niche when it comes to fighting games that are more about burly dudes beating each other up and giving them head somethings. They're fun, but that's not the point. But even in that, fighting games themselves are a niche genre. They are one of the harder genres to really make profitable compared to things like FPSs or RPGs, which basically rake in cash all the time. Or actually in modern times, we got the MOBAs, they're really the cash cows. But yeah, so going into a fighting game, I think this was brought up in another ZTI or whatever I did, where I was talking about fighting games. It's hard to go into fighting games and just think, I'm gonna make a bunch of money. That's not the mentality to really go in. Next tweet. The biggest obstacle is a lack of exposure and community. Many people don't play Arcana Heart because they don't know it exists. Yeah, and to an extent that does come from the designs that go into the game. Some people don't want to talk about Arcana Heart, but more importantly, maybe the developer could just put a little bit more money into advertising it, get it on those fighting game streams, convince YouTube channels to run like small replays of whatever they do and all that such. I'm trying to add more fighting game related content to my channel, but that's all I gotta say about that tweet. Next tweet. There is also no central place to discuss Arcana Heart outside of Dustloop, which is primarily a Guilty Gear form. This is one of the 2 most important tweets out of this set. Because, yeah, Dustloop is Guilty Gear, Shoryuken is Capcom. These niche fighting games need to really find a way to gather a community or create a site that's built upon gathering a community and hasn't defaulted to a couple of games. Because, yeah, it's another case of the developers need to be putting in a little bit more time and money into a game. And that's sad because fighting games take a lot of time and money to make in the first place. So it's sad that you can't just throw out a game and call it a day, but that's the world we live in. Nitro Plus Blasters, I'm bringing up another game, is a fighting game that I'm currently doing a review of. There is so little information all scattered about across the internet that it's frustrating for a new player to kind of learn. And Arcana Heart sadly falls into a similar scenario, and with the homing system, it just gets so much harder. Next tweet. Bad online net play doesn't help. I'ma just stop right there. You can read that tweet all you want. That is the gem of all problems of fighting games. If you have bad net play, there is effectively no reason to play your fighting game. Modern day, people don't go to other people's house and sit on the couch that often anymore. A lot of gameplay when it comes to people going up against other people is done over the internet. And when it comes to fighting games, you need to have that flawlessly. You don't get to have, I think it's rollback netcode when it comes to FPSs, there's a terminology for FPSs that basically says, yeah, it can mess up a little bit here and there, but you won't really notice it. That's why you sometimes die when you ran around a corner, despite the fact that bullets don't curve. And that's part of the netcode of the FPSs. In fighting games, they don't get that leeway. If you press light punch and that light punch doesn't immediately come out, there are problems and you need to fix them. I purchased Arcana Heart 3, convinced a friend who refused to play Skullgirls with me to buy Arcana Heart 3 so we could have an anime fighting game to play against because I like anime fighting games. Played it, realized the netcode was shit when I told him to tap the forward button, and it took a second and a half for him to move forward, and promptly refunded it. Fix your netcode or your fighting game's going nowhere. And I guess the final tweet that I want to really bring up, if you want the game to sell, you need to sell it. Again, developers need to put, I guess, either hire another company or just find a way to convince YouTubers, maybe just giving out free copies to other YouTubers. That's, I guess it is hurting your bottom line a little bit, but at least you're not actually paying money. You're just giving people free copies and being like, hey, make a YouTube video or 6. Help us out. It'll give you ad revenue, it'll give us internet FaceTime. Everyone wins. But yeah, so these tweets I think were really important, and I hope more people notice these sort of things when it comes to making fighting games going forward. And I do think some developers are taking these into consideration. I mean, I think it's funny because talking about the removal of the homing system, I'm gonna go back to that before we go. It's kind of like a reverse of what Street Fighter did. Because Street Fighter V basically shafted the casual play, instead focusing on the core people who were fighting in the tournaments and making sure all that was ready and then selling a full, $60 product. Removal of the homing system seems to be a huge push to the casual market and just kind of shafting the hardcore players who stuck with you all this time through, all 3 of your games with all their multiple updates. Both extremes are wrong in my opinion. There needs to be a balance. But that's what I'm going to leave you with. Put in your comments, your opinions on this. Maybe you have more problems with the visual design change and what that might imply. I was actually talking to a friend way back, again, back to Street Fighter, and being like, yeah, more fighting games are going to do that, sadly, just to get more people to play them. And lo and behold, this tweet happened. But I'll see you guys next time. Ugh.